I stood frozen at the bottom of my own staircase, a grocery bag digging into my fingers, listening to my husband's voice drift down from our bedroom. He wasn't coughing, he wasn't groaning, the way a man with a 102 fever should be groaning. He was laughing, low and easy, the way he used to laugh with me before the years wore that softness down to something more careful. Then I heard the sentence that split my life into a before and an after. "Don't worry," he said. "She'll never find out." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. 22 years of marriage, and I suddenly understood I didn't know this man at all. My name is Susan Clark. I'm 45. Until that Tuesday in March, I would have told you my marriage was ordinary, in the best possible way. Not passionate like it was at 23. Not perfect, but solid, the kind where you fold each other's laundry without thinking about it. I manage claims at an insurance firm in Spokane. My husband Thomas built an HVAC repair business from nothing, working out of a rented garage for 6 years before he could finally hire help. We married 18 months after meeting at a barbecue, and spent 2 decades building what I believed was a life neither of us would ever want to leave. That morning, Thomas called at 7:15, voice thick, saying he'd woken up with a fever and was going to stay in bed. I went to work like it was nothing, but by 11, pushing through claim forms, I found myself worrying about him the way you worry about someone you've spent half your life with. So on my lunch break, I bought the things you buy for someone who's sick: soup, orange juice, crackers, the cherry medicine he complains about but always takes. I drove home humming along to the radio, feeling something close to contentment, with no idea I was driving toward the end of everything I thought I understood. I let myself in through the side door, the one that doesn't creak, already composing a warm little speech in my head. That's when I heard it, his voice from behind our bedroom door, clear and unbothered, nothing like a man suffering through a fever. A rhythm to it, a back and forth. My first instinct was that he was on the phone with his business partner. Then he laughed that easy laugh, and a voice that wasn't his answered back. My stomach dropped in a way I can only call instinctive, some ancient part of my brain understanding betrayal, before my conscious mind caught up. I stood absolutely still, gripping the banister, and I listened. That's when he said it. Casual, almost bored, like he was discussing the weather. "Don't worry, she'll never find out." I will hear that sentence in my sleep for the rest of my life. I didn't cry. I didn't storm through the door demanding answers. Something in me went very quiet and very still, some deep, practical part of myself taking careful, silent notes. I stood on that landing for maybe 90 seconds, caught between the urge to burst in and the colder instinct telling me to stay and listen. I chose to listen, and I have never been so grateful for a single decision in my life. The woman's voice wasn't a whisper. It was brisk, businesslike, almost clinical. "Are you sure Susan signed everything?" Not no. "Does Susan know?" Not, "Is she going to find out about us?" Signed everything. Those weren't the words of a mistress. Those were the words of someone confirming paperwork. "Everything's in my name," Thomas answered without hesitation, satisfaction in his voice that had nothing to do with romance. "She's signed whatever I put in front of her for years, and never once asked a question." My face went hot with a shame that didn't belong to me, because he was right. Refinancing documents, he'd called them, back in the fall. A manila folder, a pen, routine paperwork to get the business through a slow season. I'd signed page after page without reading a word, because that was our marriage. He handled the finances. I trusted him. I didn't burst in. Confrontation would have handed him the advantage. He would explain, soften it, find some story that made sense in the moment, the way skilled liars always do, and I'd be too shaken to see through it. So I backed slowly down the stairs and let myself back out the side door. I sat in my car for a full minute before I could turn the key, hands shaking not from sadness but from sheer disorientation. 22 years of Tuesday dinners and Sunday mornings. And underneath all of it, apparently, another version of him running an entirely separate life. By the time I reached the office, I'd made a decision, though I didn't fully understand its shape yet. I wasn't going to ask Thomas anything. I was going to find out for myself, quietly, before he had any idea I knew. What unsettled me most wasn't the woman's voice. There'd been nothing intimate in it, nothing flirtatious. It was the voice of someone with a checklist. An affair, devastating as it would be, was at least a story I understood. This felt colder, structured, planned. That evening I went home and made dinner like nothing had happened. Handed Thomas a bowl of soup I'd bought for a man who apparently hadn't needed it at all, and sat across from him wondering for the first time in 22 years who exactly I had married. I didn't say a word over the following days. I smiled at breakfast. Meanwhile, underneath that calm surface, I worked faster and more carefully than I had at anything in years. I called our bank from my car and requested every joint statement going back 3 years. What came back unraveled something in my chest, one document at a time. Investment accounts I didn't recognize. A home equity line drawn against nearly 60% of our equity that I'd never been told about. A life insurance policy whose beneficiary had been quietly changed 11 months earlier from my name to something called the Clark Family Trust, an entity I'd never heard of. I hired a lawyer, Diane Okafor, sharp, unhurried, a corner office downtown. When I finished telling her everything, she asked one question that has stayed with me since. When Thomas asked you to sign these documents, did he ever explain what you were signing? The honest answer was no. He'd say, just some refinancing. Or, the accountant needs this memo. And I'd sign, because 22 years of marriage is supposed to mean something. Diane's digging over the following 2 weeks revealed the woman's identity. Patricia Vance, a financial consultant Thomas had been working with for over a year, specializing, according to her own listing, in asset restructuring and wealth transition planning. Reading that phrase at 11 p.m., with Thomas asleep beside me, something cold settled into my stomach. This wasn't a woman he was sleeping with. This was a woman helping him quietly dismantle our marriage, document by document, while I signed whatever he handed me. The timeline Diane built was worse than I'd let myself imagine. It didn't start months ago. It started nearly 4 years earlier, with a small, forgettable beneficiary change. From there, brick by brick, property titles shifted, investment accounts consolidated under his name alone, the HVAC company's assets quietly restructured out of anything I could claim in a divorce, despite the fact that I'd co-signed the original business loan 19 years earlier and spent countless unpaid weekends doing his books. Sitting with that 4-year timeline spread across Diane's desk, I felt grief mixed with fury. Grief for the marriage I thought I'd had. Fury at how easily he'd turned my trust, my busyness, my willingness to let him handle things, into a weapon against me. There's something else, Diane told me. Based on the most recent filings, Thomas is preparing for something bigger, a final transfer, possibly very soon. Driving home past the house I'd lived in for 18 years, past the garden I'd planted myself, I understood I wasn't just a wife who'd overheard something troubling anymore. I was a woman, standing at the edge of losing everything. Diane called on a Monday with real urgency in her voice. I need you to come in today. She had the full picture now. Thomas wasn't protecting the business. He was preparing to sell our house, already listed with a title company, under a fast close arrangement, built for investors who don't want complications, filed just 8 days earlier without a single word to me. He'd also initiated an early withdrawal against his retirement accounts, steep penalties be damned, because it delivered cash fast. Patricia Vance's firm had helped him open a new account at an out-of-state bank we'd never used, the kind built for quiet, quick transfers. Then Diane slid one more document across the desk. A personal loan Thomas had taken out 6 months earlier, using our home as collateral. The same home he was now quietly preparing to sell out from under both of us. If his plan went through, I'd be left with nothing. Not the house, not 2 decades of retirement savings, not even clear legal standing to fight for the business I'd helped build in its hardest years, sleeping 4 hours a night while he learned to run pipe out of a borrowed truck. I sat very still, and what I felt wasn't panic. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you finally see the true shape of a threat instead of just sensing it in the dark. Thomas had built his entire plan on one arrogant assumption, that Susan Clark simply wasn't the kind of woman who asked hard questions. He had no idea how wrong he was about to be proven. "What do you want to do?" Diane asked. And I understood she wasn't just asking about legal strategy. She was asking who I wanted to be, confronted with the man I'd trusted for over 2 decades, methodically preparing to strip me of everything I'd helped build.